All right, now we're going to be here on page Kuf Samach Zayin, right? And we're going to reach just the bottom part at the top. It says, "Medachidus alayla chatzos nigdelis Leah v'nektanis rochel v'chatzos alayla." There's a zivuk, so it's like what, a seesaw? Not a seesaw, but a pulley chain. One's going up or one's going down. So then he says the Rav says v'ha'inyan hu she'atach b'kol chatzos alayla. Now before midnight. Where she's still around the back as her anpen. And they come into her ma'at, little by little. So these mochim that are entering into the female aspect are coming little by little. And it happens actually, they're finished by coming in by chatzos. And at that point she spreads all the way down. Also parts of echod kenizkar, and everything is now in one. Parts of that is Leah and Rachel, Leah, but everything is called about Leah by the name Leah. Let's keep reading across the top, so then we'll pick up the shefas here as best we can. If Chatzos Lila, so he says at midnight, Choseres Leah upon him, Leah comes around the front. V'hinei hi arucha, but now she's very long. Kakol shir kumazer anpen. Ayedechet masha lokechas be'alvo min Rachel kenizka. That whole thing about what she's taking from Rachel, which is taking the Keilim of Rachel. So what is he talking? He's talking about if you're taking the Keilim of Rachel, the Keilim didn't move. We might have seen that somewhere else. The Kitzonis doesn't move, but the Panemius moves, and at any rate, that's what happens here, is that the Panemius, sounds like the Oros go into Bria, or Bia. So he says, Shalokechet b'chavurav min Rachel kenizkar, Vazmiz the Vekasim Yaakov, and now she's in a position to make a yichud with Yaakov, b'vur le'el, v'chein yizbor l'kaman, as Hashem will talk about it more, he says. So we're going to go back to the previous page, and we'll go back to page Kuf Samaches, and we'll read number Mem Aleph. We'll just read a few of these and see where they go. He said, "V'chashlama zaman k'nisasam ku b'chatzos alayla mamish." He says that that moment last night was 12:34. He says, "Ki oz nispashtu." Ad Sium Ragle Rachel, because at that point she spreads all the way down to the bottom of the feet where Rachel was, the Nigmacha called out those parts of Echad Kadizkar. So he says, Kavar Chavarno La'el, we said before that in the Shefa Kavanosa as Kushis Amafarshim Ala Stira B'Divra Rav. What's that? The Khan Mavur Shes Pashtas Amochim B'Leah V'His Ma'at is parts of Rachel Na'asas B'Techidas Alada V'Chad Chatzos. That sounds pretty reasonable to me, is what he said. But Haseb of Chatzos Nishlam Kanisas Samochim B'Leah, bingo, and she's ready to go. The V'chein Nishlam B'Ismatus Rachel V'Yurida Sokol Abriya. Okay? Velo the Ale, but previously we saw the Drush base and Mavur Ba'ofen Achar, it explains it a different way. There's man his pashas and mochem v'leah v'yiridas rachel the brir and the azid b'chatzas alayla, but alos the shachar. Nothing. It sounds like nothing is really changing until you get to midnight, and then rachel goes down, and you get that pulley type of deal going up. One's going down, one going up. You and Sham Masha Kasav the Bezes. It's pointing this out. I didn't go over there, but this is where it was. There's a whole idea over there, so it's a stira. So let's see the next. The next one goes on number Mem Bet. He says, Ki oz nispashtu ad siyum ragle rachel. The nigbach of kol the asos, parts of echod, etc. Let's read the light print. He says, He named Mekevin Shalea Gadol of Atach Kol Kumazer Anpen, with the Vegas in Yaakov, and that takes place. Muchrach Hu Shagam Yaakov Gadol Kol Kumazer Anpen. Well, it has to be, he has to be the same size. How does it get to the same size? He said the Keilim, Shashir Kumach Haragel the Yaakov, so that the measurement, how do you measure Yaakov, where is Rava, who Mechachaz of the Mata is there Anpin, he doesn't come up to the whole height of there Anpin. Now this answer seems to me like it's like a following the bouncing ball here. So we figure out how he gets here. So al karchosh and asa ata sedach hagdalas parts of Yaakov. So you have to see that Yaakov had to have grown here. Question is, how did he grow? So now we're going to answer. Va'inyan zeren mizbar l'kumon later on in the drush shinui tefilos. I think we might have learned that already. But v'chein ku b'priyetz chaim also brought over there. So he says in regards to Tikkun Otzos, he says hagdolas parts of Yaakov na'aseh ba'oven de'lo. He's going to explain. He says, where in the Eitz Chaim Shaar Lamed Zayin Perik Aleph, he says, the parts of Yaakov, Mahaseh Ha'aretz, parts of Yasef, is made out of the radiance that comes from the parts of Yasef. So we have now here this idea. There are two different radiances that are coming from Yasus. Now let's just stop and think for a second. Let me see if I can get myself together. He says the parts of Yaakov, the Asim Ha'aras, parts of Yasus. Okay, we have no side. Let's say they're the right side or the right side of a column, a two-part column. And it's on the right side. It's going to be shining through the walls into Yaakov. That's where Yaakov comes from. So now going to be two different Ha'aras that come from Yasas. He said that in the first half of the night, which is when their sleeping is taking place. This pashto anai the Yasos was the nai the Yasos spreads b'toch nook. So he said goes into the nook. Now we're talking always about Bina going into the nook, or would be Tavuna going into the nook. Here, why? Because we said that the male aspect stays on top of the head, a Zeranpin, and acts as a maki. So that would be Yasus. So here he says that Mispashte Anai the Yasus B'toch Not. The Tzarak Ian. So this is the problem. The Haluch Barak Anai the Devuna Mispashte Ba Be'ez Adamita. So that's according to Shem Tzaz, and he's so he says, so that's the case, it's a little bit of a problem. He says, but Shem HaKavana the Moach Bina B'Hakavuras the Das the Yasas. Maybe that's what we're talking about. We're talking about those two. He said, Nimsohim B'nai to Devuna, both of these are found in the Nai to Devuna, Achrachilov. So he said, V'oz Meir Ha'ara Miyasa. So he said, this is the answer. He says, now at this moment, there's an R that comes from Yasus, that Yasus, which is inside of Leah, the parts of Yaakov, and it shines from inside of Leah, which is now, it's part of the, so he's saying that Yasus goes into Leah as well, and that seems to be a stira, like we said, because it's supposed to be up above the head, but it's also inside of Tavuna. So this is the first right. So that shines out from there, that this Yasos shines out to there towards Yaakov. So that's one way that he gets a ha'ara from Yasos, so that he could develop and build himself up. So he said, but now, after midnight, when the mochin come back into Zeranpin, Yesh the ha'ara sheniya the Yasos b'toch yisod the Zeranpin the Yaakov. Let's read again. Yesh the ha'ara sheniya. There's another light that comes from Yasos. Mitoch ha'yisod the Zeranpin, that's inside of the yisod the Zeranpin. That's the other aspect of Yasos. So he must be saying that there's two different kinds of Yasos. There's one that accompanies Tavuna as it enters into, that's Benimi, to Tavuna goes to enter into Leah. And as a result, it shines through and somehow through there. Don't know exactly how. And then in this one also is the regular one. It says that where Yasos is inside of Zeranpin and shines there into Yaakov. Nigdal parts of Yaakov, Geshir, Kuma Zeranpin, Bechatzaz, Halaylam. So, I take that as, that was the explanation. It seemed to me there was, there's somewhat missing over there. So let me come over here and let's do number Mem Gimel. Number Mem Gimel. He said, V'chatzos alaylo choseres Leah panim b'panim And then the last line is, V'az b'zdevekas Yaakov, that he said that they go the whole length of, Zeranpin. Yesh be'inyan zera b'stira b'divrei hara, but he just talked about this, and he said that the Yichud takes place between, at the Chaz and Lamala. So he says, Yesh be'inyan zera b'stira b'divrei hara. The Vavara of Khan, where he's saying like this, and he says also later on, you're going to see this in Drush Shinway Atfilos. He said, Mavur de Be'eza Zivug de Yaakov de Leah, Bechatzas Alada, because he says that at the time of the Zivug of Yaakov de Leah at midnight, Shir Kumaso Hu called Kumasazer Anpen, the size of their height is the whole height. But up previously, and he says over this is in the Drusha Gimel Kriya Shema, but he says it over here. He says, he writes, Mavur, the Shir Kom Hasa Oz Hu Rak Mechachosa Dezer Anpen that the Shir Kumasa Oz Hu Rak Mechachosa Dezer Anpen Belvad. This is really not what I thought he was going to say. The Shir Komasam Oz who Rak Mechachosa Dezer Anpen V'Lamata Bilvad. I really missed that when I read it. And he says that their shear is really for the Chaz of Lamata. I don't know what he meant over there, but here I'm thinking that he had said previously that their Yichud takes place from the Chaz of Lamala. That's what I'm thinking. So I guess I read into that. There's two completely different ones. One is the one we talk about here, where she is v'huna asa b'shir orech kol kumas azer anpen. Besides that, there's something else that happened. Now, what did he say? He says that are shnei zivugim. I only know about one. Now he said there's two. That's a lower level where they go b'yu'in. So he says in order to understand that, he says you have to yu'in shahar chavnu. We went on in detail about this. V'da od the yeshem ha'mefarshim, the Yafashah, so on and so forth. He says Pirush the Leah and his keres midrash there. Here's another idea. He says the Leah that we're talking about here, Eina Kavana al parts of Leah Hamiti. It's not really talking about that Leah. What Leah is he talking about? Ella al Chitzoni is the Rachel. Now, help me here, because I don't know what this could be talking about. So there we settle the Yafashah over here. He says Sham, Es HaKushach on his keres the El Yu'un Sham v'ayin o b'meluam. But he went through a whole drush. I read it's very interesting. Didn't he go through, am I wrong? A whole drush of how showing that the Yichud takes place from the Chaz at Lamala? Or was I mixing that up? Anyway, I'm leaving it right here. We'll go on to the Sifra